UFC? Uncle Dana? Okay. I don't know why I did a little smug ass laugh there. But guys, these are the fights that we've needed, alright? Thank you so goddamn much for finally dropping this shit. I mean, the anticipation for just something fresh, something new, just something for the MMA community to talk about in the past couple months, it's been pretty bad. Like 311 before, during, and after it's kind of been carrying because we've been in a bit of a drought with news and kind of just excitement and just, yeah, we're looking forward to 313. That card is looking better and better every single day, but it's like without a big 314 or 315 pay-per-view to look forward to, like, and we were just coming off 312, which, you know, kind of over-delivered beyond expectations, but at the end of the day, there's no name value or storylines going into that or going out of it, really, besides like the main and the co-main, unless you're a massive Taliesin Teixeira guy. People forget, man, but dude, God bless the MMA gods, because we have 314. I know that 315, Bilal and JDM, and we even got like Sandhagen versus Figgy confirmed for an Iowa fight night. We're gonna get to that kind of shit in like a separate video, but as of for this right now, and again, all of these are amazing announcements, you know, besides the Leon Edwards fight taking a bit of a fucking hit, that's gonna be the decision of all time. I mean, 314 is gonna be the main focus of this video. We're gonna be talking about all that other shit in kind of a separate occasion. There's just too much shit to talk about, alright? Like, we got all this just unloaded on us like it's WrestleMania night. Couldn't be happier, man. Like, this really is, these are the best kind of times to be a fan, man. When you're just getting off a long shift, whether you're just, you know, you're picking up the phone while you're with your buddies, or whether you're waking up from a little sleepy time, what the sleepy time? Whether you're waking up from a fucking nap or some shit, and you look at all the, I mean, God forbid, I'm an American too, all y'all in the UK or the Aussies and all that shit, dude, it's probably even more like y'all are just getting this shit in the middle of the night or when you wake up the next morning. But it's just such a breath of fresh air, man. These are the times that MMA fans live for, so really fucking hyped for these fights, dude. 314, it's a stat card. I don't know if we're just getting caught up in the recency bias and saying it's better than 311, because 311 was fucking amazing. I mean, even after the Moicano changes and all that shit, but 314, dude, top to bottom, I mean, some of the prelims are kind of duds, but like, a lot of these fights are really fucking good. There's a lot of recognizable names here, from the main event all the way down to Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper, for Christ's sake, so we're just kind of going to be breaking down a few of these fights here, doing an early preview for UFC 314. I'm so very excited for this. I also got my first marathon on the day of the card, so I'm gonna go run that fucking race, dude, and then I'm just gonna be drinking all day, and then I get to end it with 314. My life couldn't get any better on April goddamn 12th. But just starting off here with the main event, man. So TOPURIA's vacated. I just found out today as well that the reason is apparently Lopez released this on an interview that he was doing, but he said that the UFC was shutting down the idea of Ilia Topuria becoming a double champ, and that a new rule they're going to be enforcing is that champions, there's going to be no more double champions simultaneously holding two belts at the same time kind of shit going on anymore. So I guess as of right now, unless they change it for the future, DC, Cejudo, and Nunes are going to be the only ones right now. Well, and McGregor, but he didn't really defend him, but you know what I'm saying? So Topuria decided that he felt like he did enough at featherweight, and you know what? I would have liked to see him face Lopez and Evla, but at the end of the day, man, he did beat Emmett and Mitchell on his way up, and even the big bad Ryan Hall, baby. But then when you're knocking out in glorious and insane and very upsetting fashion Holloway and Volk, the division's fucking gold and silver place goat right there. So silver place goat, they gave me a degree, y'all, and yet I'm spitting out all this retarded shit right now. But Topuria felt like he had done enough, and you know what, honestly, in retrospect, I can't fucking blame him, and now it just makes lightweight even more exciting. And honestly, when you think about it, for featherweight, it kind of makes featherweight elevated as well. It was kind of running into a dud, like the division already kind of suffered sometimes from people being inactive and shit like that, but at the end of the day, it's full of really talented guys. But it felt like with Topuria, especially after the Holloway win, it kind of was just a huge gap, it felt like, between Topuria and everybody else, you know what I mean? So honestly, having Topuria kind of leave in the way he did, it doesn't really tarnish the division or anything like that. People will know that there's going to be a legitimate champion in Volkanovski or Lopez. Lopez isn't just getting handed this fucking shot. Like, if Volk wasn't around and Volk didn't deserve the rematch like he did, even though I understand like a lot of us weren't really looking forward to the damn fight, well, honestly, it was getting a little more hyped up as this is the right fight to make. Volk versus Lopez. It's not a guy with Lopez that's super forced. Like, if Volk wasn't around, Lopez would be getting the title shot anyways against Topuria, and I honestly think this is perfect for the division, because Volk, baby, Volk can genuinely, he's the favorite right now. He can genuinely get the belt back, and Volk is my favorite fighter. Should I whip out the shirt? Let me see if this shit's clean. Hold on. Oh, fuck. Hold on. Alright, look at this shit, chat. This is the only motherfucking fighter I got a shirt for. Look at this shit, chat. Yeah! Yeah, the great, baby! Oh, I'm fucking excited, dude. I'm so excited for Volk to be back. And now it's like TOPURIA is gone, man. And it's like for, well, poor Holloway. Because, of course, as soon as Holloway moves up, hey, it is what it is, brother. TOPURIA can go and have the featherweight division. I'm going to move up to lightweight, baby. Blessed Express. And TOPURIA just cannot let Holloway get away. But this is good news for Volk here. Because now, like, I mean, I've been preaching this in the past couple of months lately as well. Like, I really do feel like Volk is going to be able to beat everybody else in the division. I think a guy like Lopez, probably out of anybody, is going to give him the most problems because Lopez, he's explosive, relentless, he's dangerous as fuck, not only in that first round. Obviously, the first round, I feel like that's where he's at his most dangerous. He's got very explosive style. He's an active fighter. The dude just gets after it in almost every single regard. He takes on all comers, short notice or full camp. Like, the dude is a bad motherfucker. And he's going to come out there in that first round, and he's very well-rounded as well. He has a lot of pop behind his shots. He has good striking, but he also has a very good jiu-jitsu base. But here's the thing, alright? Volkanovski's been there and done that, alright? He's training with Craig Jones, training with Aljo. He gave Makhachev very tough tests on the ground when they fought the first time. We're not going to talk about Fat Volk the second time, but we've seen Volkanovski, who in his own regard is one of the most well-rounded fighters on the entire roster right now. Like Lopez, he's well-rounded, alright? Good striking, good power, solid cardio and fight IQ. We kind of have to see a little bit more out of that, and at times, like against like Dan Ige, for example, like there are concerns, but I feel like that was more so just because he was dealing with all the weight cuts and like the change of 3 opponents and all that shit. So I kind of take that one with a grain of salt, but I don't know, man. Lopez is still going to be fucking dangerous in there, but if Volkanovski can survive the storm, because this is a 5-rounder, man, to determine the motherfucking champion of the world. No questions, no bullshit, here we are. If it goes past the first and second round, it's not that I think that Lopez has bad cardio, you know? He 30-27 to Ortega, and again, it's not a 5-rounder, but he put on a good pace and was able to maintain it, you know what I mean? Against a guy like Ortega, who's had his fair share of main events and 5-rounders and shit. So Lopez, I feel like, has underrated cardio. I feel like people dwell a little bit too much on the Dan Ige performance. I feel like that was kind of very circumstantial. He's gonna come into this one prepared, you know, and he was so active last year, and just seeing him have the last few months off, it's kind of crazy that this is like a full-fledged break for him, but he's gonna come in prepared. Like, he knew he was gonna get a main event spot or a title opportunity, interim title, whatever the fuck. So Lopez is gonna be ready to go those extra rounds. So don't get me wrong, I still think that he's gonna be his most dangerous in the early going, though. And against like a guy like Volkanovski, who has so much championship experience, he's fought like some of the most dangerous fighters, dynamic strikers, like guys like Islam Makhachev. You know, Yair Rodriguez, say whatever the fuck you want about the guy's skill set, but he's fucking dangerous and can take out any featherweight's lights within that first couple of rounds or whatever the fuck. And he beat a guy like that, a guy like Islam Makhachev, who's really good at putting on a good pace and pressure. I mean, in terms of like, you want to compare the grappling, he's beaten a guy like Ortega, and Ortega really fucking had him, man. All right, let's talk about Prime Volk. Let's bring back Prime Volk for this one. Minus 155 favorite right now, man. He's back. But seriously, let's talk about like a guy like Ortega, very skilled in the ground. He almost had Volkanovski a couple of times, but Volk survived that kind of storm. So we've seen a dangerous striker in Rodriguez that Volkanovski was able to overcome, and a dangerous guy in the ground like Ortega that Volkanovski was able to overcome, and a guy like Makhachev who's very, very elite and very, very well-rounded, and Volkanovski took him to a very close fight. Still think Makhachev edged him out 3-2, but that's fucking something. And again, just being able to put on a good pace, dictate where the fight goes from start to finish, like how he did in the Max Holloway fights, especially the third one. Like, Volk just completely controlled the pace, the pressure, the flow, dictated where the fuck he wanted shit to go, and it worked out perfectly for him. So Volkanovski, man, he has great striking, great wrestling, great fight IQ, great cardio. Here's the fucking thing that concerns me. Here's the fucking thing, you guys. It just concerns me that he's over 35, and that's just the cursed age. You know, once you get past that point in the lighter weight classes, I believe it's 170 or under, or 155 or under, or some shit like that. But that's what concerns me, because Volkanovski looked good in the first round against TOPURIA. I think that the time off is, I don't think ring rust is going to be a serious thing for him. If anything, I think that it's going to fully be able to get him rejuvenated, get the chin to heal, because obviously that was a huge concern going into such a quick rerun against TOPURIA. I mean, the first time they fought. So now that Volkanovski is going to be rejuvenated, I'm ready to get the biggest comeback in UFC history, mate. I want to fucking see him, alright? I really want to see it. it. It does concern me a little bit how everybody is kind of hopping on this train like, Volk's getting the belt back, Volk's getting the belt back, and we're not really kind of addressing that Lopes is still a serious problem for Volkanovski. And again, it's one of those things where you look at the age of Volkanovski versus the momentum of Lopes, because that's a real fucking thing in sports, man. It's a real fucking thing in MMA. Momentum is a genuine aspect that you got to kind of consider. And Volkanovski, while the 14 months off are going to be good to heal up the chin, I don't think his skills and his well-roundedness, whatever the fuck you want to call it, are going to be fading away or diminished at all because of the time off. I just think it's going to be good for him. But against a guy like Lopes, who's been freshly active, hungry as fuck, and he's never reached championship heights yet, you know? This is a comeback story for Volkanovski. It's a way to move him up a little bit on the greatest of all time list, or a way to replenish his legacy, you know, a good way to get the hype back after the back-to-back losses. Like, Volkanovski is the featherweight GOAT, and he's one of the greatest fighters of all time, and he's always going to have that until the next guy comes around. But if he's able to do this, it would do great things for his legacy. But at the end of the day, that doesn't change the fact that he's already fucking done it, and for years and years in a row. Like, this guy was the pound-for-pound fucking king at one point. Don't make me cry, bro. But Lopes is hungry. We know how hungry he is, all right? Not only is he just, like I was saying, insane inside of the cage, very fucking entertaining to watch. Crazy how 2024 was just last year alone, and that was his breakout year, and now all of a sudden he's right here getting a full-fledged title shot that is deserved and not questioned. What I really like about Lopes is, like I was saying, exciting inside the cage, but also down to fucking scrap, man, at any time, short notice or not, it doesn't matter the opponent. So this is a fantastic fight. I know that a lot of us were talking about this would be the better fight to make, and then it'd probably be for an interim strap, but I'm totally cool with this scenario because now lightweight is even deeper. We're gonna see Topuria versus Poirier. That's a fucking mind fuck. Topuria versus Poirier. Topuria, mate, versus Pinhead Diamond. Or Topuria just gets Makhachev right away, but I feel like that's what we're gonna see next for him. But featherweight, I feel like, is in a better spot now. Lightweight is an even more elite division now with Topuria in it, so I feel like Topuria leaving was honestly probably best, and it still makes things really fucking intriguing, man. Like, this motherfucker is really shaking things up, and I can appreciate it, whether he's really trying to or not, because I know the UFC, it was more so the UFC being like, you can't have both at once, and he's prioritizing lightweight, and that's fair. But shit, man, just moving on up next to the co-main event here, Paddy fucking Pimblett versus Chandler. It's actually going down. Like, this was a fight that we've been kind of talking about and speculating over the past few months, to be honest, but they kind of were in denial. Chandler started hinting about International Fight Week and shit, but I don't know, man. This fight is weird. It's kind of a double-edged sword because I'm very hyped for it, but also I don't really care at the same time. I don't know, man. Like, I'm excited for the fight. I think it's a good fight to make for Chandler. It's nice to see him fighting down, and I think it's a really good kind of entry into the top 10 for Paddy Pimblett because Chandler presents a lot of problems for him, and we're going to fuck around and find out, man, with this one because Pimblett's already like at fucking 12, and the last couple of wins he's gotten have been impressive, kind of straying away from the whole Jared Gordon catastrophe, tragedy on Pimblett fucking lane with that one, dude. But Michael Chandler, man, people forget, man. You want to know what I like about these fights, okay? Like, what I like about Chandler Pimblett, Rodriguez Pitbull, Neal and Prates, Volkanovski and Lopes. Like, you want to know what I like about these fights? Even Ige and Woodson, they're fucking unpredictable, okay? Like, I'm leaning a certain way for each of these fights, but I really don't have, like, a definitive winner in my head yet. And it's fucking crazy that, like, this fight, I feel like, is the toughest one to call. Like, Chandler and Pimblett, I want to lean towards Pimblett, and I'm going to be leaning towards Pimblett, but Chandler is a motherfucker. We saw more of a patient and technical kind of aspect to him in the last fight, whether it was forced or not. I mean, Oliveira, on the contrary, we also kind of saw a very patient and technical side of him that we haven't really been used to, especially as of late. But Michael Chandler, man, completely fucking blew up in the 5th round in a good way. And I mean, say whatever the fuck you want about the illegal back of the head shots, all right? Chandler's a fuckhead, all right? I can't justify that. But at the end of the day, in the 5th round against a guy like Oliveira, who was having a masterclass performance, to be able to win it that way, man, like, and Chandler usually carries that energy, but in the 1st and 2nd rounds, or honestly, I should just word it as for as long as he can fucking get it to last, man. He does have a finite amount of gas in that tank, you know what I mean? And he kind of just picks and chooses what he wants to do with it and when he wants to use it. When Chandler wants to go pedal to the fucking metal, dude, he will. Like, that's how he almost got Poirier out of there. That's how he almost got Gaethje out of there if he used fucking better fight IQ. That's how he almost got Oliveira out of there in the 1st. Like, even in his last fight, like, that's how we put Oliveira in such a dangerous scenario in the 5th. Like, when Chandler taps into that shit, Whether it's sad to say or not, he really is one of the most dangerous lightweights you could be trapped in there with. So I'm going to give him that. Like when Chandler locks in there, man, and he just fucking explodes the way he does, it's the most dangerous aspect to his game. Like his ground game, he never fucking uses it. His fight IQ, it's completely non-existent. His cardio, it's alright for the first 2 rounds, and then after that, you really got to kind of be concerned. But when he's on, man, and when he's putting forward that pressure, and when he's really trying to just completely look for the finish, look to please the crowd, whatever the fuck, he's fucking dangerous, man. And for Paddy Pimblett, Paddy the fucking Paddy lad, it's going to be interesting to see if he can survive that storm, because Chandler's going to come out like a motherfucker. Yes, this is a 5-round co-main, and I'm sure Chandler's going to want to pace himself, but I don't think he's going to be as patient and technical or wait as long as he did like in the Oliveira fight. Like I think we're going to see Chandler kind of get at it a bit sooner from the get-go. And Pimblett is kind of an interesting comparison to Oliveira, as Oliveira is someone who's really improved on the striking in the past few years. Oliveira's got a solid amount of pop in his shots, man. But of course, he's primarily a grappler. Very dangerous down there, wants to take his fights down there. But we've seen a lot of improvement in his striking over the past few years to where it's really developed and made him a lot more of a well-rounded fighter. I think Paddy Pimblett is like the goodwill version of that, or like the not fully blossomed version of that, because I guess however the fuck you want to word it, Paddy Pimblett is a guy who has been making a lot of improvements in the striking over the past few years. He has been developing a little bit of pop. I don't think it's too much though. Of course, like his grappling, his cardio, whatever, his striking, none of it is on the level of Charles Oliveira. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying like Pimblett's a guy who has had that strong grappling base. That's where he wants to get his fights, and he's honestly really dangerous down there, but a lot of improvements in the striking, and I think that's kind of where you can make those comparisons. But Chandler got 49-46 by Oliveira, so it's going to be curious to see what I feel like the lesser version is going to be. I'm not saying that these guys have the same fucking style or even similar styles, but like, you know what I'm saying, similar scenarios and against a similar opponent. I don't know, the fact that it's 5 rounds is interesting, but I do think that Chandler's still going to kind of find a mix of the patience and technicality that he wants to lock into, that, you know, actually trying to use this fancy fucking thing called fight IQ, but also using the relentlessness and tapping into that really aggressive side and hunting for the finish. If he can find that sweet in between, I think that's how Chandler's going to get it done. Go ahead and put on the fucking pressure, put him against the fence, get the fight in the pocket, land the bigger of the exchanges and the bigger shots when it comes to the striking, and put the pressure on Paddy, because Paddy's a guy who, you know, good grappling, he's going to want to get the fight to the ground, but I don't know if he's going to be able to get Chandler down as efficiently as a guy like Oliveira did. You know what I mean? Like Chandler, he's not going to use the wrestling offensively really ever. We have seen it a couple of times, but it's sort of something he keeps in the back pocket. He just kind of wants to stand and bang, please the fucking fans, let Dana, even if Chandler has like a 2-15 record in the UFC, he wants to really make sure Uncle Dana keeps him around. But his takedown defense, say what you want, it is there and it is solid. It just so happens that Oliveira's really fucking good, really dangerous, really good with the takedown entries. So Paddy Pimblett, is he gonna be able to get Chandler down? I really don't fucking know. I'm really hoping so, because that's why I'm leading towards Paddy Pimblett, who, crazy to say or not, man, he's the division's leading prospect. Even though you got guys like Faraz Siam, Joel Alvarez, even more, like Paddy Pimblett is leading the way, ranked number 12 and trying to crack into 7. So what Paddy needs to do is to try and efficiently hold his own on the feet, avoid Chandler's power shots, get him to gas out, don't let him dictate the pace and the pressure and just the velocity of the fight, and mix it up well, you know, try and take the fight to the ground, aim for a submission there. Chandler is, again, defensively really solid on the ground, but he is vulnerable at times, especially if he gets too fucking excited in there. And the opposite goes for Chandler. What his plan, I feel like, to need to do for this one is to just find the in-between of being patient and technical, but also tapping into that explosiveness. Kind of what we've seen out of Justin Gaethje when he had that kind of couple fight win streak going before the Holloway fight. You know what I mean? So that kind of mindset going into it. But honestly, man, this is a fight, like I'm saying, double-edged sword. I'm excited for it, but also, I don't know. I really kind of would have wanted to see like Pimblett versus Moicano or some shit like that, but I'm totally cool with this fight. Again, kind of questionable why it's 5 rounds, but fuck it. I like the fight. Makes sense for both guys. Nice to see Chandler fighting down, and Pimblett, this is a great opportunity for him. And a guy who can, you know, Chandler's not the craziest talent in the world, man, but he is fucking dangerous in there. So moving on up next to Yair Rodriguez and Patricio Pitbull. This one kind of came out of nowhere, man. I kind of just heard that Rodriguez versus Allen was going to be going down, and I remember thinking, yes, like that's the right fight to make. That's a good scrap, makes sense. I didn't want to see Rodriguez getting some kind of crazy treatment or whatever the fuck. But no, now he's getting Patricio Pitbull. I don't even know if the Allen fight was even supposed to happen in the first place. It was probably just a bunch of bullshit. But at the end of the day, man, this is a good scrap, and I'm gonna be going with Rodriguez. Like, I was kind of saying earlier about how a lot of these fights are unpredictable, and I really appreciate that. Honestly, man, like, while I can see Pitbull getting a win here, I do think that he's 2 to 5 years. I know it's a wide ass range, but I do think that he's 2 to 5 years too late, man. And it's unfortunate because if you asked me a few years ago, maybe I would have said Pitbull, because Pitbull's a guy who's fucking good, man. Former Bellator champ, Bellator double champ. The guy is clearly very skilled, racked up a solid resume for Bellator standards. He was kind of a guy who had a lot of hype going on, to the point where, you know, you didn't have to be that crazy of a hardcore to kind of hear about Patricio Pitbull. You know, he was kind of Bellator's biggest star for a while. And speaking of Bellator, man, so we saw Chandler, speaking of the motherfucker, we just ranted about him for a few minutes. Chandler was kind of the first in like 2021 or 2020, something around that time, to go and kind of represent and make a debut in a featured spot of a big pay-per-view going against a top 5 guy. And Chandler was able to get the better of him in Dan Hooker. Then you had the second time around, Michael Venom Page coming in about 3 or 4 years later, taking on a bit of a lesser known, not lesser known, but lesser caliber opponent. He wasn't dealing with a top 5 instead of top 15 in Kevin Holland, but MVP went out there and he won in good fashion. So now you have the third time around. This is like the third kind of big Bellator prospect, is not the word to use, because again, Pitbull is 37, man. He's had his time, and hopefully we could see some longevity in the UFC, but you don't know how many fights he's going to get. That's why I'm saying I kind of wish this fight would have happened a little bit ago, or not even this fight specifically, but Pitbull's entry into the UFC. But I understand it's difficult, and PFL or whatever the fuck was kind of fucking him over, whatever the fuck. But it's going to be interesting to see if Pitbull can be that third Bellator win. Chandler got it done. MVP got it done. Can Pitbull be the next in line? I just don't think so, man. Rodriguez, I kind of shit on the guy at times, because like, while I do think he's a very exciting fighter, I don't need the motherfucker to be all brash and talk his shit or whatever the fuck. His striking skill set alone and the explosiveness, the entertainment value that he has inside the cage, it's fantastic. He's a dynamic, fun, powerful striker. It's a spectacle to watch in there. Guy puts on bangers, knows how to just fucking throw caution to the wind, and I love to see it. Rodriguez has an amazing style to watch. Whether you're a casual or hardcore, we can all fucking appreciate what Rodriguez puts on in there. But again, I just kind of shit on the dude at times for fighting once a year, and he gets kind of just this random privilege. You know what I'm saying? Like, the dude just kind of only gets to fight up, even though he's kind of been repetitively losing, even though there are other matchups for him clearly there. But you know what? This is somebody he's kind of taking a risk against in Pitbull, who's not even fucking ranked, so it is a risk for Rodriguez. And again, these Bellator fucks, they're 2-0 in these kinds of situations. Featured fight of a big pay-per-view kind of vibe. Rodriguez, though, man, while I do think Pitbull is good and he can beat a solid amount of guys in the rankings, I feel like, even at 37, I just think that Rodriguez, even though that he does fight once a year, the thing is, he only fights once a year, so it's gonna have to really fucking matter. Like, the stakes are gonna be high every time he does do it, at least for himself, because it's like, all right, I'm not the most active guy. I gotta make my fucking check. I gotta earn my spot in the rank, or keep my spot in the rankings, and he's gotta make the most out of this, because you don't know the next time we're gonna fucking see Rodriguez. So I do think that Rodriguez striking is just gonna be too much. He's gonna be explosive. He's gonna be hunting for the finish, I feel like. I don't know if Pitbull's gonna be able to keep on to that pace. Rodriguez has just such an unorthodox and wild style, an incredible kicking game. His speed is completely there, just in general on the feet, but I don't know. So great to have Pitbull in the UFC. Sadly, though, I just think we're kind of missing out on his prime by a couple of years, but it is what it is. It's still a great fight to have. So another fight we're going to be talking about here, Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. I really do believe this was the right fight to make, man. UFC, man, give it up. Like, you could say what you want about whatever the fuck, but like Volkanovski, Lopez, Ige Woodson, Jeff Neal, Carlos Prates, like shit like this. Like, these are the right matchups to make, man. So gotta appreciate that, because it's been kind of wacky, fucking goofy, goober ass matchmaking so far this year. So we've kind of had a lot of duds. So to get shit that's like logical and makes sense, and fights that can actually be bangers, is that too much to ask? All right, so I appreciate shit like this. So Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. There are kind of concerns. All right, I know I just kind of hyped out how good of a fight it is, and I am very excited for it. I believe this is the right fight to make. Carlos Prates call out. He got what he wished for, all right, and now he's going to be taking on Jeff Neal, who again he called out for when he knocked the fuck out of the other Neal and Neal Magny. But I can see Jeff Neal, especially with how dangerous Prates is going to be, especially in the earlier kind of going. I could see Neal trying to take this one to the clinch and kind of keep it there. Maybe push up against the fence for a little too long. Like, Neal's a guy who, when he wants to get the fuck after it, put on an exciting fight or kind of hunt for the finish or really put on a good pace, he can fucking do it. You know, he put on an absolute war against Shavkat. He's coming off of a good finish over RDA, and we've seen just good finishes and performances in general from Geoff Neal at times. But then there's the other side of Geoff Neal, who he kind of looks a bit lackluster in there. He doesn't look as consistent or as good as he did in past performances, or can be a bit boring, focus a little bit too much on the clinch. Or I understand you gotta do what the fuck you gotta do to win. Prates is a motherfucker on the feet, has a lot of power, dangerous prospect on the rise. I do think he's gonna lose to a lot of the top 10 guys, but Geoff Neal's a winnable fight for him, so it is risky for Neal. I understand him wanting to take this fight in the clinch. I fucking get it. You gotta win. But it does concern me that could make the fight of a bit of a dud, but I think Neal's gonna get the fuck after it. And I think the same is clearly said for Prates. Prates is coming off of a great win over Neil Magny. I don't know why people are talking about it like Neil Magny is a top 5 name. It's very fucking bizarre. But at the end of the day, I fuck with the dude's personality, knows how to have a good time, but then kind of lock in when it comes to the camps, locks in when it comes to the cage. I can appreciate Prates, and I think he's good for the division, all right? And he's coming out of the Fighting Nerds, who are on an absolute fucking tear in 2024. This is kind of their entry. Well, this is going to be after Gene Silva, but after whatever the fuck Silva's going to do this weekend, Prates is kind of going to be paving the way, trying to enter himself in the top 10. He's going to be just hunting for a finish, man, especially on a big pay-per-view like this, and against a guy like Neal, who Neal's very good, solid fighter, and honestly one of the best boxers in the welterweight division. I got to give it to Neal, and especially he's got underrated pop behind his shots, but Prates is just going to be looking to expose him, look to make his way. This is nothing for Prates except just an entry to just make a statement on a big pay-per-view and get the fuck into the top 10. Like, I feel like that's how Prates is going to be looking at it. And Geoff Neal, man, like, solidly well-rounded, but again, he's a great boxer. If Prates is able, you know, to impose his will and impose his style, and Neal's not liking what he's feeling, he's going to just try and, you know, maybe make the fight a bit of a dud, avoid Prates' biggest shots, really maintain the distance, kind of slow down the pace of a fight a bit, get it in the clinch. But honestly, man, if Neal's chin is there, and honestly he's just unimpressed with what Prates is throwing at him, whether stylistically or just power-wise, I could see Neal trying to hunt for the finish, man, and just trying to take his lights off. He's like, all right, this kid, I'm liking what he's throwing at me right now. It's nothing too crazy, and Neal just kind of gains that confidence and is looking to take him out. So shit like that, man, this is an amazing fight to make. It's winnable for Geoff Neal. It's winnable for Carlos Prates. Honestly, I'm leaning towards Geoff Neal to win this one, to be honest with you. But it's a great fight to make, man, but we're going to have to see how it goes down. But just kind of talking briefly about some of these other fights, man, we have Krylov versus Reyes, which, you know what? It's good to have Nikita Krylov back. He's been gone for a long fucking time. And Reyes, the 2-0 in 2024 run, man. How can we not appreciate it? It's enough to bring a tear to a grown man's eyes. But I'm going to be honest, this is kind of a rough matchup for him. A guy who's solidly well-rounded, has good hunting for the finishing abilities like in Krylov, a guy with good cardio, good wrestling, solid striking. Like Krylov, big, dangerous, and Reyes, you know, it was nice to see him get some momentum back. And I do think he could win this fight. I don't know what the odds are going to be. I'd assume he'd be like, I don't know, like if I was an odds maker, I'd probably put Reyes as like a plus 220 or some shit like that. It's just, I'm worried for him in this one. So I appreciated the 2-0 in 2024, and I'm rooting for Reyes. I really hope he can get this win, and he can, maybe. But Krylov is just a dangerous fucking matchup for him, man. Especially with how long he's been gone. He's going to be looking to make a statement. Moving on to Ige and Woodson. This is a great fight. I know there's not a ranking next to Ige's name, right? But I'm pretty sure he still is in the top 15, around like that 14 or 15 spot. Sean Woodson is like 7-1 or 8-1 or some shit like that in the UFC. Tall, long, rangy, insane, just kind of build for the featherweight division. But the dude can fucking crack, and he's a good striker. And I honestly don't know who's going to win this one, but I think we're going to see fireworks. This is a kind of a perfect featured prelim fight to have. It's going to put Sean Woodson on the map. But Ige, it's winnable for him, man. And I think he's going to try and get the fuck after it. I think we're going to see a bit of a war here. Some nice back and forth exchanges on the feet. And then we also got, we got Yan Jianao versus Verna Jandaroba, All right, and then we also got Chip Miller versus Chase Hooper, the ultimate unk versus I don't know, not Unk, nephew, little one, child. I don't fucking know, all right? The young Ben Askren, the young me, I guess, in Chase Hooper. But you know what? I've been really riding a lot of the Chase Hooper hype, especially within the past year. I'm telling y'all, get on the hype train now because he's still facing all the Unks. It's very weird how he's facing just Unk after Unk in a row. But I think he's going to go out there and get the better of Jim Miller. I think Miller can definitely present problems for him. Miller's solidly well-rounded, and despite the old age, man, like he remains relatively active and gets some fucking wins, man. It's not against the craziest competition, you know, but it's like Miller kind of wins one, loses one, so I gotta fucking give it to him. And he's coming off of a good win at 309, but I think Hooper, man, like hop on the train now while he's not fighting guys in the rankings yet, because just such improvements we've been seeing in the the aggression that he shows in there, the pace he puts on guys, the way he just kind of gets the fuck after it. His striking and ground and pound is improving so much and so quickly. I mean, the dude is only like in his like late 20s, mid 20s, some shit like that. I know he looks prepubescent, but dude, the skills are so there, and I think he's gonna go solidly far, man. And obviously we know how good the grappling is. We know how good of a base that is to have for him. So Hooper, I think, is gonna go and fuck up Jim Miller. I see maybe like a round 2 submission or maybe like a unanimous decision here or some shit like that for Hooper. I could even see some kind of little TKO action come from Hooper, alright? Don't sleep on the underrated power that he's been developing. So this is a good matchup to make. It's nothing crazy. Like, this isn't gonna be one of the fights that I'm just like pacing back and forth really thinking about like, oh, I can't fucking wait for Miller versus Hooper. But it is a nice fight to have. Like, it makes sense for Miller, makes sense for Hooper. You can have kind of just this Hunter x Hunter-esque of hunting down every fucking Unk there is in the company for Hooper, but you know, not the fight that people were really craving, but it's a good fight to have on the prelims, especially for a stat card. So I'm down with it. I fuck with it. We also got Darren Elkins on this card. You know, we got Cedricus Dumas versus Mikhail Sacek. Sumadarji's there as well. He's back. Like, I don't know. The prelims, other than the fights I kind of just named on the big-ass bout list, you know, they're solid kind of prelims to have, but they're nothing really too crazy. But yeah, man, that's going to be the end of this yap sesh here. 314 is absolutely amazing. It's a super fucking stat card. Volk versus Lopez was the right fight to make. I'm leaning towards Volk, but I maybe could change my mind, but I'm leaning towards Volk on that one. Chandler versus Pimblett, I'm going to lean towards Patty, but again, not exactly sure yet. Rodriguez versus Pitbull's a fucking banger. I'm going to be going with Rodriguez on that one. Neal versus Prates, hopefully that one goes well, because on paper it's a fucking dream matchup. Leaning towards Jeff Neal. We'll see how that goes. Krylov and Reyes, leaning towards Krylov. Ige and Woodson, I have no fucking idea, to be honest. I have no idea who I'm going to go with that one. Maybe I'm leaning towards Sean. And then Miller and Hooper, clearly I'm going to be going with Hooper on this one. And again, the prelims, the other ones are kind of just there. They're not bad fights, you know, some solid name value, but they're kind of just the kind of prelims to have. But 314 is an amazing card. Again, I'm going to be making a video sometime next week or in a few days, whatever the fuck. I don't know how time works, I guess. I don't even know what goddamn day it is, dude. But I'm going to be talking about 315 and some of the other fight announcements that were going down, because they're fucking good. UFC went from being in such a complete drought to now they're on an absolute tear. So I got to appreciate it. So this definitely made my fucking week, man. The shit is great news, and I'm very excited for it. Let me know what you guys think of my thoughts. Let me know what you think of the card in general. What do you think about these matchups? Who are you leaning towards to win? Let me know in the comments below. We're just here to talk some MMA. Thanks so much for making it this far in the video. If y'all could help me get to 1,000 subscribers, I'd really appreciate it. But just in general, thanks so much for making it this far. All in the Smoke MMA. Thanks for giving me y'all's time. Appreciate y'all a lot, and I will see you all next time.